Ay.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Greetings from National Harbor near Washington, D.C. And before launching a video, I will say a few words of introduction. Celebrating the United Nations Day, I would like to reflect on how the long road leading to the creation of the United Nations actually started with an incident including all the ingredients of the Tai Ji Men Case. Gifts freely given to a spiritual organization, greedy governments who wanted to get hold of them, and the domestic institutions incapable of solving the issue. As we all know, before the United Nations, there was the League of Nations, founded in 1920. But before the League of Nations, many scholars recognize as the real ancestor of the United Nations the Permanent Court of Arbitration, which was established 2 decades before the League of Nations in 1899, and it still exists. It is often confused with the International Court of Justice, founded in 1945, for the good reason that they are located in the same building, the Peace Palace in The Hague, Netherlands. But the 2 institutions are different. The International Court of Justice is part of the United Nations and may render verdicts against any member state. However, because of the enforcement of its decisions should pass through the Security Council, the International Court of Justice is not very effective. It can always be stopped by the veto power of the permanent members. For example, in 2022, the court ordered Russia to immediately withdraw its troops from Ukraine. But because of the Russian veto power of the Security Council, the decision was obviously not enforced. In contrast, the Permanent Court of Arbitration is not part of the United Nations. Its verdicts are more effective because it only rules in cases between the two states that have both preliminarily declared that it would accept its verdict. Although several intellectuals with very different political ideas lobbied in the 19th century for the institution of the permanent court, in the end, the decisive impulse for its creation came from Tsar Nicholas II of Russia. It is today recognized as the first institution aimed at realizing the key objective of the United Nations, solving international disputes peacefully, thus avoiding war. Interestingly, creating the permanent court became urgent at the end of the 19th century because United States and Mexico had a case they wanted to submit to such an institution, which did not yet exist. It became in 1902 the first case decided by the permanent court. The case was called Fondo Piadoso de las Californias, Spanish for Pious Fund of the Californias. And it was about precisely gifts given to spiritual institutions. The origins of the case were very old. They dated back to 1696, when the Jesuit Catholic priests in both Baja California, now part of Mexico, and what is now the state of California in the US, decided to organize in a systematic way the collection of gifts for their religious activities by creating a fund independent from them and the government and tax exempt. Because of the complicated story of the Jesuits, the fund later supported other Catholic orders as well. Supported by gifts for centuries, it accumulated an enormous patrimony. In mid-19th century, both Baja California and present-day American California were part of Mexico, an impoverished state that badly needed money. The government did what many states do in these cases. It declared that the gifts given for centuries to the Pious Fund were in fact taxable, calculated the taxes, and seized by military force all the properties of the fund. Mexico unilaterally decided that because of the unpaid taxes, everything now belonged to the state, except it promised to give an interest of 6% on the value of the properties that will be devoted to the original purpose of the donations, i.e., supporting Catholic priests in California. In 1848, a war between the United States and Mexico ended with the American victory, and Mexico was compelled to surrender California and other territories to the US, keeping only Baja California. Because of events in Mexico, its government stopped paying even the 6% interest to the Catholic priests. However, the United States claimed that the 6% after the partition of California should be divided in two. Mexico may do what it wanted with its 3%, but the other 3% it should pay to the United States, which would in turn give the money to the Catholic bishops of California. The controversy escalated to threats of military retaliation by United States since Mexico didn't pay anything. But both parties agreed that they would accept the verdict of the proposed Permanent Court of Arbitration. The court decided the case in 1902 in favor of the United States. It was already bad enough that Mexico had appropriated centuries of gifts made by privates for spiritual purposes. It should at least pay to the priest the interest percentage fixed by its own legislation. Mexico started to pay the 3% interest to the US every year in 1903. But because the anti-Catholic Mexican Revolution suspended the payments in 1912. After a very long litigation, the case was settled only in 1966, with Mexico transferring a lump sum of $700,000 to the United States, but declaring it will pay nothing in the future. The sum represented only a small fraction of the value of the money donors had contributed to the Pious Fund for centuries, which had basically been stolen. We can thus see that the activities of the most significant predecessor of the United Nations were set in motion by the case of a state falsely declaring that gifts to our religious organizations were taxable and doing it retroactively, even for centuries, in order to steal goods and money. It left only a small percentage to the intended recipients of the gifts and then tried to steal it as well. The lesson for the Tai Ji Men case is that history repeats itself. Their land was stolen just as the money of the Pious Fund was stolen, making gifts taxable through legal and semantic acrobatics. In the case of the Pious Fund, international arbitration in a way worked, showing that the system of the permanent court was in fact a good idea, but it did not work completely. Greedy state bureaucrats and the temptation to appropriate gifts given for spiritual purposes are as old as history. Internationalizing such controversies does not guarantee success, but it may help. This is why internationalizing the Tai Ji Men case remains an important strategy to pursue after so many disappointments in Taiwan. And with this, I conclude my introduction, and I will ask our very good technicians to launch the first video.
The United Nations was built by the world for the world. Since 1945, it has been the place for countries to unite behind global solutions to global problems. Solutions that ease tensions, build bridges, and forge peace. Solutions to eradicate poverty, spur sustainable development, and stand up for the most vulnerable. Solutions that deliver life-saving relief to people living through conflicts, violence, economic hardship, and climate disasters. Solutions that level the scales of justice and equality for women and girls. Solutions that tackle issues that were unimaginable in 1945, climate change, digital technology, artificial intelligence, and outer space. In September, the General Assembly adopted the Pact for the Future, the Global Digital Compact, and the Declaration on Future Generations. Together, these milestone agreements will help ensure that the United Nations system adapts, reforms, and rejuvenates, so it is fit for the changes and challenges around us and delivers solutions for all. But our work will always be rooted in the timeless values and principles of the UN Charter and international law, and in the dignity and human rights of every person. In today's troubled world, hope is not enough. Hope requires determined action and multilateral solutions for peace, shared prosperity, and a thriving planet. Hope requires all countries working as one. Hope requires the United Nations. On United Nations Day, I call on all countries to keep this beacon for the world and its ideals shining.
Thank you. And now we will pass to our first speaker, And I'm glad to introduce a new speaker and a bright young scholar in the field of new religious movement who participates for the first time in our webinars. It's Mark Nemes, who is a researcher at the Hungarian Academy of Arts Research Institute of Art Theory and Methodology, and is very close to get his PhD from University of Szeged. And he is also an awardee of the Hungarian National Eötvös Scholarship, and in this capacity was a visiting scholar in 2023 and 2024 at CESNUR in Torino under the late Pierluigi Zoccatelli. And for the past 10 years, his research has focused on new religious movements and anti-cult movements, which makes him a fit presenter in our webinar. And by participating in CESNUR conferences, he also took an interest in the esoteric aspects of Tai Ji Men, as you will hear from him. So, Mark Nemes, the floor is yours.
Professor, thank you very much. My paper is titled Tai Ji Men's Dragon Dance as a Multi-Layered Performative Act. Legally established as a Qigong Academy in Taiwan in 1966, Tai Ji Men is a school of dedicated Qigong, martial arts, and self-cultivation collective, drawing from 6,000 years of Taoist wisdom. Its primary goal is to achieve harmony among the dualities of existence, yin and yang, heaven and earth, the body and the spirit. In 1999, its current leader, or Shifu, Dr. Hong Tao-tse, proclaimed that the time has arrived to elevate humanity from suffering, urging his disciples, the Dizzy, to share his teachings with the world. This announcement sparkled several cultural initiatives, including the ringing of the bell of world peace and love, which began in 2000, and the global tours of cultural performances, including the aforementioned Dragon Dance. The late Pierluigi Zoccatelli, former deputy director of CESNUR, has already explored the multifaceted meanings behind the ringing of the bell in 2022. Building on his insights, I aim to provide my brief interpretation of the Dragon Dance. Unnecessarily to say, mine is an interpretation of an outside observer, and does not necessarily coincide with how the Dizzy themselves may perceive this sacred performance. For the untrained eye, Tai Ji Men's Dragon Dance might appear to be merely a cultural showcase. It is undoubtedly a colorful and vibrant performance of Chinese cultural heritage, which is made possible by handcrafting artisanal dragon heads and sometimes dozens of meter-long dragon bodies. This massive mythical creature is then brought to life by synchronizing the movements of the Dizzy, who are led by the Dragon Ball before the creature's head. For scholars of religion, however, the arduous preparation process and the practice of the Dragon Dance itself unveils further interpretative layers. To dissect these in an orderly manner, I will now utilize Scottish scholars Ninian Smart's phenomenological morphological approach and examine the Dragon Dance from the interconnected angles of the ritual and material dimensions. Smart states that rituals are in their essence strictly regulated bodily acts. He says, and I quote, "Ritual is an act, a bodily activity involving performative usage of language, which involves a formal pattern of behavior that is either closely or more loosely followed by the involved. Furthermore, in Chinese tradition, rites are part of the greater category of li, or orderly behavior. From a functionalist perspective, rituals are therefore aimed to reenact or perform previously narratively established extraordinary events rooted in the mythical time of Illud Tempus and the sacred space, or Illud Spatium. The performative usage of language and physical acts are also particularly important, as these postulate a sense of cohesion, typically established through repetition and procedurality. everyone involved must understand the general purpose and meanings of the conveyed acts and the words during the ritual, and follow these as mutual signs of participation. Neither the language nor the acts are excessive or purposeless in this sense. Everything must be part of a greater mechanism. The orderly nature of the rituals also entails connotations with mimesis. The individual depicts or finds structural similarities between his life and the actions and meanings of what the ritual carries. In these contexts, the transcendent is shown, if the transcendent is shown as merciful, so shall the devotee be one. If the entity that it depicts is vengeful, so shall the worshipper be. In the case of Tai Ji Men, however, the conveyed meanings of the dragon dance and the dragon itself are compassion, courage, justice, and wisdom. Upon further dissection, one may also see that by reenacting times before history, rituals aim to restart the cycle or linearity, depending on the religious tradition, of creation itself. To achieve this, however, preparation and sufficient ritual purity are essential. Carried out alongside procedural and strict rules, limiting the available materials and manufacturing methods, in the case of Tai Ji Men, one may see the creation of the dragon as one such act. The dizzy must adhere to traditional craftsmanship rules, making everything by hand and supplying materials only from fitting sources, in this case, the sacred mountains and bamboo forests of the Miaole County. Furthermore, while enacting the dragon dance, Tai Ji Men dizzy stay in synchronicity, stepping and jumping in an orderly manner together while following the Dragon Ball's movement to the left and to the right. Besides depicting the aimed unity of the world, the auspicious dragon's slithering movements and the unison of the dizzy carry yet another meaning. While participating in the dragon dance, those involved dissolve into a unified creature, actually embodying the auspicious dragon. In this state, the transcendent or mythical creature manifests itself in front of the eyes of the observer. Furthermore, the involved dizzy become part of something greater. They are the dragon, unifying their own body with the dragon mask and the long cover they built and decorated. As Smart notes, the material dimension is a reinforcement of ritual, and with that, a reinforcement of cosmology. The impressiveness of the institution is registered through vestments, relics, jewels, glittering divinities, glorious statues, and soaring buildings. In this effect, the material dimension is both congealed ritual and conceptual hardware. Lastly, for a phenomenologist, the Ouroboros nature of the dragon unveils a final layer of possible cosmological interpretation or meaning. As the dragon dance is also a reenactment of creation itself, the involved actively take part in bringing illud tempus and illud spatium into the eyes of the audience, who can experience the process of creation firsthand. As the divine dragon, one of the four auspicious beasts in Eastern philosophy, wakes and circulates in the available space, it also outlines the borders of existence and creates a protective barrier from chaos with its own body. While deconstructing the phenomenon of the dragon force, I have outlined of how those involved may recreate their own cosmos and enact, and for a while effectively become, transcendent creatures. Taking up their outline nature means that these bodily acts also strengthen the collective ethical and social meanings of Taoist self-cultivation. As such, in line with the International Covenant of Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, Tai Ji Men's activities and performances can be regarded as more than valuable forms of artistic and cultural expression, and as such deserve protection and preservation even in times of conflict. Others in this seminar will deal how this protection was unjustly denied from Tai Ji Men, thus violating the United Nations Human Rights Covenants, what we celebrate today on United Nations Day. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Mark Nemes, for this different perspective that reminds us that there are many dimensions in the experience of Tai Ji Men. And now we pass to our second speaker, which has already participated in some of our webinar, and is another doctoral candidate, although she already has another academic degree, Maria Verde, who is a candidate for a PhD at the University of Buenos Aires with a dissertation of which I am the co-director. So it's my pleasure to introduce once again Maria Verde.
Thank you, Massimo, and hello, everybody. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights asserts that all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights, aiming to promote universal respect for these rights and fundamental freedoms. The International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights and the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights expand on the principles of the Universal Declaration. Together, these covenants form the International Bill of Human Rights, setting comprehensive standards for the protection and promotion of human rights for all peoples and nations, emphasizing the importance of justice and peace in the world. Although Taiwan is not a member of United Nations, it has voluntarily adopted the two covenants as part of its domestic legislation, committing to uphold these standards. This adherence demonstrates Taiwan's dedication to protecting the civil, political, economic, social, and cultural rights of its citizens. However, the implementation and enforcement of these rights remain critical to ensuring that Taiwan's commitments translate into tangible protections for its people. In this context, a brief review of the Tai Ji Men case highlights the challenges Taiwan faces in fully realizing these duties. Tai Ji Men, a Qigong and martial arts academy, has been embroiled in legal and administrative battles since 1996. During a politically motivated crackdown on religious and spiritual groups in Taiwan, prosecutor Ho Guang-shen fabricated a case of tax evasion and fraud against them. After years of struggle, in 2007, all facts were cleared up, and Taiwan's Supreme Court established that Tai Ji Men was not a crime school, as Ho Guang-shen falsely claimed, but a martial arts and Qigong academy. This meant that all monetary contributions given by Tai Ji Men DC to their Shifu, Dr. Hong Tao-tse, were gifts, qualifying them as tax-exempt income under Article 4, Item 17 of the Income Tax Act. The Supreme Court was not the last to speak in favor of Tai Ji Men. In 2009, the Control Yuan, the state branch responsible for evaluating other branches to ensure they work correctly, elaborated a report on the case. The report outlined several major legal violations related to Prosecutor Ho's activities that led to the National Taxation Bureau's issuance of the tax bills, which were based on the prosecutor's indictment without conducting an independent investigation, violating due legal process. In Judgment 422 of 2018, the Supreme Administrative Court evaluated new evidence, confirmed that Tai Ji Men was and had always been a Qigong academy since its establishment in 1966, and was, as a consequence, tax-exempt. Consequently, the court instructed the National Taxation Bureau to reevaluate and recalculate the taxes based on this criterion. Tai Ji Men should be recognized as a non-profit organization where the goods given to the master by the disciples were, and always had been, respectful offerings, in line with an ancient tradition and tax-exempt. However, a bill was still maintained by the National Taxation Bureau for the year 1992 based on the technical argument that the decision for that year, which had been litigated separately from other years, rendered against Tai Ji Men had become final and was not subject to further appeals. In 2019, the Taipei High Administrative Court twice sent letters to the National Taxation Bureau of the Central Area requesting them to re-examine the tax bill for 1992 based on the same standard for the other years under scrutiny, and then withdraw the enforcement. The court cited the Supreme Administrative Court's 2018 judgment, which recognized Tai Ji Men as a Qigong and martial arts organization. Despite the resounding rulings and opinions of the highest courts and government bodies, the National Taxation Bureau continued imputing a tax debt for the year 1992, and in 2020, confiscated and nationalized land of inestimable spiritual value for Tai Ji Men. These events represent a serious lack of respect for the judicial system and due process, demonstrating that despite its democratic structure, Taiwan has profound internal issues to resolve. The misuse of tax laws to arbitrarily target groups within the civilian population based on imposed labels without proper investigation is in itself a violation of several human rights. As stated in previous webinars, similar issues are occurring in Argentina, where the anti-trafficking law is being manipulated through stigmatizing labels imposed on minority religious organizations, such as the Buenos Aires Yoga School and the evangelical NGO Remark, to criminalize and attack them without concrete grounds. In this way, it is argued that donations of goods and money, as well as voluntary work for spiritual purposes, should be understood as exploitation and trafficking. The misuse of legal frameworks against religious minorities in Argentina and the Tai Ji Men case in Taiwan both relate to the principles and protections outlined in the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. Article 18 guarantees that everyone has the right to freedom of religion or belief without interference or discrimination. The targeting of religious minorities in Argentina and Tai Ji Men in Taiwan under the guise of legal actions directly contravenes this right. Article 14 ensures the right to a fair trial. In both cases, the misuse of laws and prolonged legal battles, as seen in the Tai Ji Men case, where tax authorities continued to pursue claims despite court rulings, show that this right is not being respected. Article 9 protects against arbitrary arrest and detention, but the arbitrary use of legal frameworks to detain or harass members of religious groups, as seen in both cases, violates this article. Similarly, the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights is also being violated. Article 15 guarantees the right of everyone to take part in cultural life. The suppression of spiritual minorities' activities through legal harassment, and in the Tai Ji Men case, the confiscation of property undermines their ability to engage in their cultural and spiritual practices, violating the right to engage in cultural life freely. Articles 6 and 7 protect the right to work under just and favorable conditions of work. The legal actions against Tai Ji Men have disrupted their operations and affected the livelihoods of those involved in the organization, as it happened in Argentina's cases. This is an infringement on their economic rights and the right to work under just conditions. The primary function of democratic states is to ensure order and security for their citizens. It is in this spirit that democratic states adhere to various treaties to defend human rights. The essence of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and consequently every specific covenant derived from it, is a recognition and affirmation that every individual matters, that all individuals are equally human and should be treated equally under the law. If the incorporation of the two covenants into its domestic law means that Taiwan is committed to protecting the human rights of its citizens equally, this should include protecting Tai Ji Men from unjust actions and ensuring the rights to a fair trial, property, and religious freedom are respected. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maria Verde, for having entered in one of the subjects of today's webinar, the two covenants. and why they were not respected in the Tai Ji Men case. And surely we will hear more from the testimonies, which, as usual, will be introduced by Willy Fautré, co-founder and director of Human Rights Without Frontiers, to which I pass the podium for introducing the second video and then the testimonies.
Thank you, Massimo. And as you rightly said, so we will start with another video before we open the session with the testimonies of the dizzy.
Conscience Story Series. Raise the muzzle of guns by 1 centimeter. The war between Russia and Ukraine continues. In April 2023, Russian President Vladimir Putin went to Ukraine for inspecting the occupied territories. A Wagnerian soldier bitterly accused, "Do you see this hand? I followed orders and used this hand to kill children. You know, that was orders." How to avoid reliving the tragedy of the past? Let's look at a true story. Rewind time to February 1989.
A former East German young man,
Chris Gufoy was trying to flee over the Berlin Wall to West Germany. A guard, Ingo Heine, at the Berlin Wall was ordered to shoot to stop him. In the end,
the young man died.
After German reunification, the court conducted a trial on the matter in 1991. Heine's lawyer argued that guards had no choice but to follow the laws and the commands of their officers. They had no choice, so claimed their innocence. But Judge Ingeborg Tepperwein thought when facing an unarmed fugitive, it's not necessary to stop him in a deadly way. Instead, it can be prevented by the gentlest means, such as aiming for legs. And Judge Theodor Seidel emphasized that not everything legal is necessarily right. And at the end of 20th century, no one has the right to ignore his own conscience when it comes to killing people on behalf of the power structure. The trial finally came to an end in 1994. Heine was found guilty. This not only highlights the importance of human rights and the rule of law, but also serves as a warning to the world. When East Germany orders you to kill, if you know the person is innocent and you still kill him, that's a crime. Not carrying out superior orders is a crime, but missing the target is not. You have the choice to raise the muzzle by 1 centimeter. This is a conscientious duty that you should take the initiative to bear. In this world, besides laws and orders from superiors, there is also conscience. When conflicts arise, as long as you follow your conscience, you will find the courage and wisdom needed.
Thank you so much for such an impressive video that is directly connected to such tragic events that we are now witnessing, experiencing in the Middle East, on the European continent, and for reminding us as well that when we get orders, we are not obliged to follow orders if they go against international law and mainly against moral values and against our personal conscience. And before giving the floor to the disease, who will share their views about the topic of the day, I would like to share my own perspective about this 24th of October, the United Nations Day. The UN was established, as we know, in 1945, following the devastation of World War II, with the aim of promoting peace, security, and cooperation among nations. Central to its mission is the recognition of cultural diversity and the promotion of multiculturalism. Multiculturalism at the UN not only acknowledges the various cultural identities of its member states, but also fosters dialogue, understanding, and collaboration among them. When Tai Ji Men looks at itself in a mirror, it can see the image of the United Nations on its face because it promotes peace and love, the main foundation of security and solidarity beyond any border. The values of the United Nations cross the path opened decades ago by Dr. Hong with his spiritual teachings. Tai Ji Men is not a state, but it is a human community, which is part of the global human nation, which incarnates the values of the United Nations, but which also transcends them with its vertical dimension. The UN Charter emphasizes the importance of promoting social progress, better standards of life, and human rights. These principles inherently support the idea of multiculturalism by recognizing the need for inclusive dialogue amongst nations with diverse cultural backgrounds. This is also the DNA of Taiwan, the cradle of Tai Ji Men, which has grown up in its nest until adulthood before spreading to other countries beyond the oceans and sowing the seeds of peace and love taught by Dr. Hong. Many Dizzy have traveled in a lot of countries where they have spread the message of peace and love, but have also integrated multiculturalism in their daily life through personal contacts with other youth, speaking other languages and experiencing other cultures. Over the decades, the UN has developed various mechanisms to address cultural diversity and promote multiculturalism. The establishment of specialized agencies such as the UNESCO highlighted the UN's recognition of the importance of culture in fostering mutual understanding and respect among nations. The UN has implemented numerous initiatives to promote multiculturalism and respect for cultural diversity. These initiatives focus on education, cultural exchange, intercultural dialogue, the respect and the protection of cultural heritage, and have culminated with the celebration of diversity. For decades, the Dizzy of Tai Ji Men have been actively present on these front lines. The hurdles were and are still numerous. First, the lack of political will. UN member states often have varying degrees of commitment to multiculturalism, influenced by national interests and political ideologies. Some governments may prioritize national identity over cultural diversity, hindering global cooperation. Second, cultural imperialism. The dominance of certain cultures, particularly Western cultures, can overshadow local cultures and traditions. This cultural imperialism can lead to the erosion of cultural identities and create tensions between communities. Third, discrimination and xenophobia. Rising nationalism and xenophobia in various parts of the world pose significant challenges to multiculturalism. The UN must address these trends by promoting dialogue and understanding to combat prejudice and discrimination. And fourth, resource limitations. Tai Ji Men is only financed by its members. But despite this limitation, its achievements are impressive when we compare them with the pledges of the UN member states and their own achievements. In conclusion, multiculturalism is a cornerstone of the United Nations mission to promote peace, security, and human rights. And thanks to Dr. Hong, Tai Ji Men is on the same page as the United Nations and widely contributes to the awakening of individual consciences, the consciences of the states, and of the whole humankind. And now, after this introduction, I will give the floor to Paul Chen, a fireware engineer.
The video, Willie, the video.
Oh, sorry, the video. Yes, there was a video already before.
Oh, no, sorry, there is no video.
Yes.
The video
so there was
is at the
another
end
one.
of the 5 testimonies and
Yes.
Marco. Sorry, I was wrong.
Yeah. So there was another one in the meantime. Okay, so Paul Chen, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Good evening. Every year on October 24th, the United Nations celebrates its day. This day honors the United Nations Charter's coming into force. The meaning of the United Nations Day is to emphasizing that every one of us is responsible for the world peace and stability. The UN's mission is to prevent conflicts. Through collective cooperation, we solve problems that threaten peace and settle international disputes in accordance with international law and justice principles. The Tai Ji Men case is a typical example of the unfair challenges that religious freedom suffers. The Tai Ji Men case began in 1996, and in 2007, the criminal diversion of the Supreme Court found Tai Ji Men not guilty of fraud, tax evasion, or violation of tax codes. However, the National Tax Bureau ignored the court's order and continued to issue illegal tax bills, resulting in a decades-long struggle for justice. During this long and tough redress process, Tai Ji Men experienced not just legal problems, but also social misunderstanding and rejection. This case showed flaws and injustice in the legal and tax systems, as well as major abuse of religious freedom about the government. And I follow Sifu's teaching and philosophy in Tai Ji Men, so I can overcome lots of difficulties in my life. And this year, I began working at a new company where the pace is much faster and the task is more than I was used to. I initially felt overwhelmed and stressed. However, President Qigong reminded me of my Sifu's words, which sent a rays from a calm heart. And I tried to calm my heart down and consider alternative solutions and step-by-step complete the mission assigned by my boss. And in work into international company, we work with different cultures and backgrounds. Therefore, great communication skills and a cooperation spirit are very important. In Tai Ji Men, I learned into how to think positively and become down when facing difficulties. It was quite helpful for me to increase my work efficiency. In addition, I transferred what I have learned at Tai Ji Men, empathy and tolerance to my work. and allowing me to have an effective communication. Through this experience, I have understood that Tai Ji Men's concepts is not only benefic for personal groups, but can also be implemented positive, effective in the workplace. And Shifu has been dedicated to spreading the culture of love, peace, and conscience over the world, as well as passing on the idea of kindness through different cultural performances. And my Shifu has traveled over the world to promote culture and religious exchange and understanding. And in March 2023, I was honored to go to Turkey to attend the 26th Euro-Asian Economic Summit. And it's an important summit attended by heads of states from various countries. And football members pray for the people of Turkey and Syria who had just suffered from the earthquake. And I had took the part of performance about the blessings of the 8 immortals. According to the Chinese traditional story, the 8 immortals are great practitioners. Their love and open minds are models for modern people to follow. During the practice, Shifu reminds us that only if we let go our narrow and subject ideas could make the most of our energy. As the 8 immortals, I feel kindly spreads from heaven to the plains and help restore peace and harmony to the earth and people. And during this journey to Turkey, 19 important people, including six presidents and former prime ministers, attend the bell ringing ceremony. It also brought a diverse range of cultural performance from ancient to modern times, bring joy, positive energy to people's hearts. Today, as we celebrate United Nations Day, we shouldn't only review the difficult history of the past, but also cherish the hard-won peace that exists now. This is the result of worldwide solidarity and cooperation, as well as the tireless efforts of many people who fight for justice and human rights. The Tai Ji Men case demonstrates that peace and justice don't come naturally, but require to unite everyone, deep belief, and ongoing efforts. In the face of injustice and oppression, only by bravely standing up and promoting justice can find true happiness in this challenging world. Let us keep the spirit of freedom and human rights while working hard to create a more peaceful world. No matter how big the obstacles and challenges we face, we must never lose sight of our initial intentions to promote good and prevent evil, and to allow the seed of love and peace to take root in our hearts like beautiful flowers. Let us work together to make the world better for future generations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paul, for sharing with us, among other things, your experience in Turkey, where you attended the 26th Eurasian Economic Summit. Your meeting with people who suffered from a devastating earthquake, your empathy pushing you to pray for them, your heart-to-heart understanding, although you did not share a common language, your mutual communion from conscience to conscience. This was, in fact, much more important than the participation of 6 presidents and former prime ministers in the bell-ringing ceremony. And now I will give the floor to Judy Wu, elementary school teacher.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Judy, a Tai Ji Men Dizi, and also an elementary school teacher of Minnan language. I believe that belief brings strength and faith, makes us brave and strong in our daily lives. Today, October 24th, 2024, is United Nations Day. The United Nations, based on its charter, has established a framework for global legal order with the goal of preventing wars, protecting human rights, and promoting economic and social development. It reminds nations of the importance of multilateral cooperation and emphasizes that all countries should handle disputes peacefully and cooperatively in the pursuit of global common interest. I'm very glad to have the opportunity to share my views with everyone today. When I was young, I would cry when seeing dead small animals by the roadside. My heart was soft, but not strong enough. Once while visiting our ancestors' graves with my family, I saw inscriptions on the tombstone indicating that my ancestors had come to Taiwan from Zhangzhou, Fujian, China, 200 or 300 years ago. As I grew older, I had a better understanding of my ancestors' trip across the sea to Taiwan. However, facing an uncertain future, they couldn't help but feel fearful. Therefore, they brought a statue of Mazu with them for comfort, and their faith providing them with inner strength and stability. Taiwan is surrounded by the sea, and many people believe in Mazu. Mazu's birthday is on the 23rd day of the third lunar month, and the Mazu pilgrimage in Taiwan has become a world-renowned cultural festival. Those who have participated in the Mazu pilgrimage will notice that along the way, many people embody Mazu's spiritual of helping others by selflessly sharing food and drinks, allowing worthy visitors to experience the true beauty of Taiwan, warmth and humanity. I have been practicing a Tai Chi Man for 30 years. During my senior year in college, I suffered from sports injuries due to practicing judo and kendo. One day, my classmate asked me whether I wanted to try Qigong at Tai Chi Man. I believed it would help me, so I seized the opportunity to start my training. Within 6 months of practicing, one rainy day at work, I was riding my scooter to the office in flip-flops. When I got there, I dried my feet to change into shoes and socks, and suddenly I noticed that my long-injured toes, which had been stuck together, could actually move apart. I was overjoyed. As I continued to practice, I found that Tai Chi Men Qigong not only benefited my muscle and joints, but also improved my whole physical and mental health. I felt more useful and vibrant, filling my life with hope and energy. My Shifu taught me to learn good things, kick bad habits, and help others. And it has become guiding values and beliefs in my life. The Tai Ji Men December 19 persecution case occurred in 1996. On May 30th, 1998, the Chinese world celebrated the Dragon Boat Festival. That day was the first large-scale cultural performance held publicly after the Tai Ji Men incident. Many diseases, like me, believe that after this event, everyone will understand that Tai Chi Men is an ancient martial arts and self-cultivation manpai, which would completely resolve the December 19 case. However, that wasn't the case. In 2007, the third trial final verdict resulted in acquittals and the determination of no taxes owed, with full defendants receiving compensation for wrongful imprisonment. Yet, the government administrative agency did not revoke the illegal tax bills, and the tax violence we faced continued unabated. Beginning in 2010, we took to the streets to peacefully demand that these agencies withdraw the illegal tax bills. I have never missed the annual actions on December 19. During the sweltering summer of late July and August, when Tai Chi Men's sacred land in Miaoli was illegally auctioned, I went to Cathedral Boulevard in front of the presidential office 3 times in just 1 month to express our demand for the withdrawal of the illegal tax bills. My heart constantly cried out, why doesn't my country love its people? Why should the people suffer because administrative agencies refuse to correct their mistakes? I understood that if I had the ability to speak out against injustice, I must be brave and stand up. If I remained silent, the number of people oppressed by injustice would only grow. I had the responsibility to break the cycle of negativity for future generations. I'm grateful that with Dr. Hong's guidance, I'm no longer that loving but timid little girl from years ago. In 1999, the Tai Chi Men Goodwill Cultural Group, consisting of 1,200 brothers and sisters, flew on 5 flights to Seattle, USA, to participate in the 50th anniversary of the Seafair. On August 1st of the same year, Dr. Hong delivered a speech titled, "A World of One Heart, a Wellspring of Happiness," at San Francisco City Hall, in which he mentioned that we are looking forward to returning to a harmonious world in which there is no suffering, no fear, no war, and no pain. I was present at the speech and was deeply moved and inspired. Over the years, with Dr. Hong and his wife, we have traveled across 5 continents, spreading love and promoting love and peace in many countries. We made significant contributions to heart stabilization and the spiritual elevation through this journey. I have also felt a profound enhancement of my life's value and meanings. Regardless of how the government seeks to suppress or persecute religious or spiritual practice groups, such actions should be condemned. For revocation of illegal tax bills, we protested and demonstrated placard peacefully on the street. However, there were unbelievable incidents of violence many times. Among them, 3 particularly left a strong impression on me. 1, an elderly volunteer who had been quietly and peacefully expressing his demands at the National Taxation Bureau, was surrounded by several police officers and administrative staff. He was allegedly pushed to the ground, resulting in injuries that needed hospitalization. Nonetheless, he continued to voice his concerns until his passing. 2. A female legal and tax reform volunteer in an elevator at the National Taxation Bureau was assaulted by administrative staff who prodded her and even stamped her foot in the door, causing extensive bruising all over her body. 3. During the Zhubei September 19 incident, a mother volunteer called Huang was holding a placard by the roadside, and she was unlawfully and randomly arrested by the police, suffering injuries and coercion while in detention. On July 13, 2024, on the forum commemorating the 17th anniversary of the Tai Ji Men Case, former Constitution Court Justice Chen Zhongmou mentioned human rights, peace, kindness, and social responsibility. He called on the government and administrative officials to fulfill their duties and revoke the illegal tax bills in accordance with Article 117 of the Administrative Procedure Act, as well as return Tai Ji Men sacred land in Miaoli and restore the reputation of Dr. Hong and the Tai Ji Men disease. Tai Ji Men has traveled to 113 countries around the world, hoping for justice to be realized so that Dr. Hong and the disease can continue to promote the ideas of love and peace worldwide. We hope that all those who receive this love and peace will join us in creating a more harmonious and sustainable future for the world and the planet. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Judy, for focusing on the role of the ancestors in the transmission of values from generation to generation, from cultural festival to cultural festival. Your ancestor courageously crossed the sea, you said, from mainland China to Taiwan, afraid of an unknown future, but he did it. And his courage is progressively awakening your conscience, as I can see. The faith in Mazu, a Buddhist goddess and patroness of the sea protecting fishermen and sailors, has certainly been on the mind of your ancestor and has led to a nationwide now cultural festival in Taiwan. The Dragon Boat Festival in the Chinese world is another important moment in the calendar, which in 1998 coincided with the first large-scale cultural performance after the Tai Ji Men incident a few years before. And in 1999, 1,200 Dizi of the Tai Ji Men Goodwill Cultural Visiting Group participated in the 50th anniversary Ocean Festival. And as of today, Tai Ji Men Dizi have had artistic performances in 113 countries, you said. Culture is really a key component and concept in the transmission of Dr. Hong's teachings. And now we will have a third Dizi taking the floor, Jenny Lin, a student. The floor is yours.
Hi everyone, my name is Jenny Lin, and I'm a high school student. Today, it's October 24, 2024, the 79th anniversary of the creation of the United Nations. Every year on October 24, we observe United Nations Day to commemorate the UN's creation and to raise global awareness of its mission and goals. The United Nations was established with the primary goals of promoting international cooperation and maintaining world peace and security. The main purpose at the time was to prevent wars and conflicts and to promote stability and harmony through dialogue, meditation, and the peaceful resolution of disputes. Over time, the UN's responsibility have expanded, particularly its influence on human rights protection and the promotion of freedom and equality. Today, the United Nations is more focused on ensuring the protection of basic human dignity and rights, as well as pushing the development and implementation of global human rights standards to improve living conditions and social justice around the world. I'm honored to participate in this forum and share my views with all of you. When I was in elementary school, my parents brought me to Tai Ji Men. As a kid, I was a perfectionist, and because I had a bit pessimistic personality, I was often too scared to act because I was afraid of making mistakes. I always thought negatively, which led me to fall into cycles of sadness and anxiety. However, after joining Tai Ji Men, Shifu taught me to be brave and to learn to communicate with my own heart. Through practicing and meditating, I no longer avoid taking action for fear of making mistakes. Instead, I've learned to take the first step with courage and do the things I want to do boldly. I also learned to change my mindset, which helps me let go of anxiety and think more positively. Now, even when things don't go well, I can change my mood and see each obstacle as a mind training game. I crack it one level at a time, solving problems step by step. I'm grateful to my Shifu for giving me this opportunity to improve myself through practicing and learning. Tai Chi Men is an essential part of my life. During middle school, I was under a lot of pressure from exams, and it gave me a lot of support, helping me learn to manage stress and enjoy my studies. Whenever I encountered difficulties or felt lost, the weekend gathering at Tai Chi Men brought positive energy and inspiration, allowing me to regain inner peace and learn to solve problems with wisdom. Therefore, Tai Chi Men is not only a safe home for me, but also a spiritual belief for me. However, despite the significant role Tai Chi Men has played in my life, the Tai Ji Men case caused me to be misunderstood by people around me during middle school. At the time, brothers and sisters from Tai Ji Men were protesting outside the Hsinchu branch of Administrative Enforcement Agency, and my school was just located right across from the agency, so my classmates and I could see them on the streets after school. Unfortunately, due to some false rumors and misleading reports on the internet, my classmates thought Tai Ji Men was involved in tax evasion, leading to a negative impression of the group. On the third day of the protest, a classmate mentioned some incorrect information about Tai Ji Men in our civics class. However, because the teacher was unfamiliar with the Tai Ji Men case, no clarification was made. At that time, my classmates' extreme comments and the teacher's attitude made me fearful that, as a Tai Ji Men Dizi, or if I spoke up for Tai Ji Men, others would look at me differently. As a result, I was too afraid to explain to them, and I chose silence. Later, I had the chance to watch the online movie called The People Speak Out, Ended the False Case, and realized that staying silent when facing injustice only strengthened the force of evil. I realized that by staying silent, I was allowing the government's illegal taxation to continue. From then on, whenever I saw the brothers and sisters protesting near the school, I began to explain the Tai Ji Men case to my classmates and proudly said that I am Tai Ji Men Dizi. I no longer worry about how others would look at me because bravely standing up for justice and defending human rights was far more important than worrying about being perceived differently. Experiencing this misunderstanding during my middle school has only strengthened my belief that the government should respect and protect human rights through laws and social policies, ensuring that everyone gets the dignity and freedom they deserve. When law enforcement agencies abuse their authorities and violate human rights, the government should conduct strict investigations and hold those responsible accountable, ensuring that no one's rights are violated. The government should not create false tax bills for its own benefit or power, and then force people to pay what they don't owe with unreasonable reasons. This behavior is actually the violation of people's rights. Shifu has led us in promoting the idea of love and peace, spreading the practice of the conscience-based culture to over 113 countries around the world. The goal is to awaken people's conscience so that they no longer engage in bad behaviors or oppress others for a personal benefit. At the same time, the hope is that everyone can promote a culture of peace with love and conscience. The government should protect and support such beliefs rather than oppress them. If everyone shows love and conscience in their daily lives, a strong positive social force will form, leading the world toward peace and harmony. In the end, I sincerely hope that we can all act with a kind heart and take kind actions, respect and embrace each other, and create a world where we are truly one big family. Thank you for listening.
Yeah, and thank you, Jenny, for telling us that you were in a school located near the Ministry of Justice Administrative Enforcement Agency. Shifu's Dizzy were having protest denominations nearby. And at that time, you were afraid of standing up for Tai Ji Men in your class because you were feeling alone against a majority brainwashed by the media and thinking that Tai Ji Men was cheating with the tax administration. And as a result, you were too afraid to explain to them, and you chose to remain silent, which is human and understandable, whatever the age. But later on, you had the chance to watch the online video called The People Speak Out, Ending the False Case. And you realized then that staying silent when facing injustice only helps the forces of evil. And this was a turning point in your life. And you started standing up for Tai Ji Men in your class. And you know that's how everybody progresses in life. And thank you very much for your courage. And now I will give the floor to Samuel Peng, a warehouse administrator.
Hello, everyone. My name is Samuel, and I'm very happy to participate in this online forum for the United Nations. The original intentions of the United Nations Days is to commemorate the entries into force of the UN Charter. This state not only remind us of the historical significance of the UN Charters, but also called on us to reflect on the concept of the global village. These ideas emphasize the importance of mutual cooperations between peoples and reflections the spirits of cooperations and assistance that transcends nations' borders. Despite coming from different countries and cultural backgrounds and languages, but we share common goals, we can overcome different, unite, and work together to achieve those goals. Last year, I had the opportunity to work in Australia, and this experience gave me a deep understanding of the power of international cooperation. My colleagues, clients, or suppliers all came from different countries, and it feels like being a minimal version of the United Nations. In such an environment, I was both excited and expectant, but also a bit scared. Although I could understand English, I was afraid to speak. That lack of confidence in my communication skills often made me hesitate, fearing that my English might disappoint others, especially since this was my first time working with people from different cultural backgrounds. I was worried about whether I could keep up with everyone else. After joining the company, I have to interact with colleagues from different cultures every day, which forced me to communicate in English. My shifu always teaches us to be brave and not to be afraid of failure. And if we fail,
I think there is a technical problem. There is an interruption of the testimony.
through repeat challenges, I work hard to communicate with my colleagues in English. Whether I feel frustrated, I would always remember my shifu's words, be brave, and remind myself that as long as I improve a little compared to yesterday, that was good enough. Through community's efforts, I went from only being able to respond with simple words to being able to communicate fluently and even joke around with others. This really turns out
Go on.
to be a surprise change. Our collaborations was full of pleasant interactions, and we not only complete every task successfully, but I will also gain precious friendships. This experience makes me realize that the much of the precious actually comes from within ourselves. Once we push through, what we gain is inner peace. And working with people who share the same goals and value is incredibly fulfilling. As a Tai Ji Men 弟子, I have then opportunities to participate in many performances, such as flag waving during 2017 Summer University, Chinese New Year gathering, and the Back to Original drama performance. During practice, each season was different, so I have to stay focused to keep up. At first, I was afraid of change and the unknown challenges, but over time, I got used to this ever-changing way of life. And thanks to this long-term training, I was able to face with each other's a common mind, always ready to perform. I applied what I had learned at Tai Ji Men to my work. No matter what tasks my boss assigned, I was always willing to accept them. As a result, I got my first business trip opportunities. I remember one time, our company at Sydney branch needed assistance for a week. When my boss assigned me to the task, I accepted without hesitation. Throughout the process, I have done everything that I could do and successfully completed all tasks. After the trip, the Sydney branch colleagues spoke highly of me and hoped I could stay and help them. This made me even more grateful for the profound influence that Tai Ji Men has had on me, gradually making me more popular without me even realizing it. At the same time, I find it even harder to understand why such a positive organization has been persecuted by the government for so long. In the past, textbooks always portrays the government in a positive light. However, after becoming a disciple of Tai Ji Men and participating in tax and legal reform activities, I'm more willing to pay attention to how public authority can interfere on human rights, creating fears and anxiety in our living environments. I was that the government might use its powers to violate human rights, as it has done to Tai Ji Men. Under the guidance of my Shifu, I had the opportunity to personally experience a true civil movement, going to the streets to hand out flyers, to tax reforms advocacy, and I loudly expressed our demands to the government. Therefore, I hope that our government can take the brave first step, admitting the mistakes and correct them. In the Tai Ji Men's 2019 incident, the government continuously fabricate false charge, creating fake evidence out of thin air, which eventually leads to the fake tax bill, forcing us to run back and forth between lawsuits. On top of that, defamatory media reports further intensifies the situation. The government use criminal charge and tax as tool, utilize the media to stigmatize us. They try to force us to give up the lawsuits because it is difficult for any group to endure long-term litigation. We have sought justice and fairness for 28 years. My Shifu says, if you make a mistake, just admit it and correct it. He also said, persist in doing the right things. Thus, we hold on to this plea and hope that the officials who make mistakes will correct them so that the people's suffering can be relieved and the national legal and tax systems can move forward to a better development. The Tai Ji Men Shifu and these, along with conscious people from all walks of life, at home and abroad, have been working hard for 28 years. Yet the case has not yet been fully redressed. However, we still believe that as long as we take actions, there is hope. Along the path to redress, we have helped many tax victims by providing them a platform to voice their demands loudly, whether on Kadagalan Boulevard or through the media. This helped accelerate the country's judicial and tax reform, protecting more people from being harmed. This kind of mutual assistance among people aligns perfectly with the United Nations Global Village concept of the cooperations to achieve common goals. If everyone can abide by the law and live peacefully, and the governments can act in accordance with the law and with conscience, this is actually a form of the cooperations between the peoples and the government. Our society will certainly become more stable and harmony, creating a safe and happy country. From there, our countries could influence others and eventually the whole world. In this way, we can surely build up a happy global village. Thank you, everyone.
And thank you, Samuel. And good that you had the opportunity to participate in many performances of Tai Ji Men, such as flag waving during the 2017 Summer Universade and also the Back to the Origin event that I also know very well. But you see, culture is really a key element in the global village, in which we are now all living a global village. Culture is a vehicle that can transcend all sorts of borders, separating peoples, if it is used properly for encouraging mutual cooperation and assistance between different human societies. Despite coming from different countries and cultural backgrounds, when we share common goals, we can overcome differences, unite, and work together to contribute to love and peace. And thank you for your testimony again. And now the last speaker will be Grace Chen, a special education specialist. The floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. I'm here to speak for my honey because she got a bad cold last night and her voice is not good. So I speak for her. Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Grace. I work for a nonprofit kindergarten. And the student I am with, including both ordinary students and special students. The special students have a unique personality and are particularly annoying. If they are impatient, they can easily lead to tragedy. Before I practiced Tai Ji Men Qigong, I was quite impatient and prone to anger. After becoming a 弟子, my 师父 taught me the importance of being calm. He always said, peace requires love, and love requires balance. Years later, I finally learned the grip of inner peace and employ it to help people in the world. Students with special needs are sensitive and can easily go crazy in an unfamiliar environment. When I interact with them with a peaceful heart, they are stable, more willing to cooperate and to learn, and their body and mind have made significant progress since. You will see smile on their face. Seeing the happy made me feel extremely contented. October 21st is United Nations Day, the day dedicated to promote spatial harmony and build a world filled with love and peace. Love and peace are the wishes of everyone. But look back at the current world, we constantly war and raging violence. The world seems to have an invisible hand of darkness affecting our heart, causing anxiety, anger, uneasiness, fear, and other negative energies, flooding our living environment. Despite the effort of many groups working hard to promote love and peace, they are still unable to keep up with the speed at which the world is getting deteriorated. My 师父, Huang Daozi, the master of Tai Ji Men, have taken his 弟子 to visit 5 continents, ringing the bell of world peace and love, making a wishes to heaven. May conscience guide the way. May the world be safer. In addition to go abroad, at home, Tai Ji Men 弟子 doing non-stop forums and lectures to share their thought, hoping to influence people for a better living environment. At the same time, They also hope that more people will join them to learn Qigong and use decent energy to create a share for our earth to block the intrusion of the bad energies. I often wonders if the 1219 case had not occurred to Tai Ji Men, would the world be different? Before 1219 case, many people want to join Tai Ji Men to practice and maintain their physical, mental, and spiritual health. I joined the Tai Ji Men in 1995, which is 29 years ago. My waist was barely sore due to my pregnancy. I couldn't straighten up every day. However, I do not want to take medicines. So I was recommended by my sister to learn Qigong with my Sifu. It's like a miracle. The next morning, my symptoms on my back edge disappeared immediately. I was totally recovered and have not recurred since then. Every day, I look forward to get off my work, finish my meal quickly, and taking my children to Tai Ji Men to share my time with my brother and sisters. At that time, the connection Tai Ji Men gave me was warmth and happiness. Also, my brother and sister was not related by blood. The connection in between was even closer than any our own families. CESNUR brother and sister took us to Tai Ji Men to practice. Tai Ji Men is full of people, laughter, and everyone there are so happy every day. Some of our colleagues saw my change, and they all want to join Tai Ji Men to practice. We were strangers before, and since we become brother and sister, we become very close, as if we were good friends, and we know each other for many years. And we talk about everything, but unfortunately, after 1219 case, my colleagues coming off. We bet to strangers, and Tai Ji Men become an untouchable shadow of earth. My Sifu is innocent. After all, my brother and sister and I have never experienced what the media say. However, we still worry because there are often drama on the TV where the good people are constantly wrongly accused. I feel like that is going to happen to Tai Ji Men. No doubt about it, the Tai Ji Men case was more exaggerated than any other unjust cases. It was a fake case, forged by the district attorneys. Since then, our Sifu and Dizi have been working hard for more than 28 years on this case. The government have not apologized at all. Long punished the prosecutor and tax collector who made this forged case. I was disappointed with the government and totally lose confidence in the judicial system. I feel that Taiwan is going to be an unsafe place. Even if you have many property, you may be weeded out by the illegal tax bill and have nothing, a bloody. There's no place to reason because from the judge and the National Tax Bureau, they are all protecting each other. When people get to the court, they will be defeated 9 times out of 10. They will lose their property that depends on for life, and they might die of depression. Even if they win, it's not an end. The court send the case back to the judge and ask the National Tax Bureau to reissue a tax bill. As people get trapped in the endless loop of appeals, their property was already seized, choking by their financial system. After exhausting all resources, many are forced to give up and surrender. Dr. Hong Daozi is a kind person. He knows how painful we are. He does not teach us to hate or complain. On the other hand, he teaches us to be compassionate. A group as big as Tai Ji Men is still undermined by the national tax barrier, and still the oppression cannot be solved. How can an ordinary person solve this? Therefore, I put aside my resentment and turn around to join my brother and sister to promoting legal and tax reform, the era of consciousness movement. During this process, I participate in countless law-related forums, tax reform activity, visit schools of all sizes, and visit the village chief in a city which is 300 kilometers away, all in order to tell everyone that our country is currently going through what kind of legal and tax chaos, and call on to join the line of legal and tax reform and the era of conscious movement, so that our next generation can have a place free from fear, where they can live with peace in mind. I feel very fortunate to be a弟子 of Dr. Hong Daozi, my Sifu. I see compassion, courage, and wisdom, as well as a sense of humor that keeps things light. Learning from him have helped me become a better person, enable me to contribute positively to the society. Although I haven't had the opportunity to travel abroad with my Sifu to promote love and peace, I always remember his teachings. I try to share my goodness I learned, so that they also can experience the joy that love and peace bring. I also encourage them to practice Tai Ji Men Qigong, hoping more people will cultivate decent energy to repress the negative force in this world. Together, we can protect our planet. Thank you all very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. and Mr. Grace Chen, as you spoke in one voice. Thank you so much for your contribution. Most of the other disease traveled around the world with their shifu to spread Tai Ji Men's core message of love and peace. You did not have such an opportunity, but you practiced his teachings where you were, among children with special needs of special care. A daunting mission for which the lesson of your shifu, and I quote him, peace requires love, and love requires balance, unquote. So this lesson was finally very useful in your life. And practicing the art of inner peace is essential to help people in this world and this global village, as it was said before. And now we've come to the end of this, as usual, very fruitful session. And I will give the floor to the person who will conclude and share his conclusions with all of us. But I think there will be a video before that. Marco will be in charge of the conclusions.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and thank you. It is now my duty to draw some conclusion. Every year, the United Nations celebrates days of observances and special days whose number is also growing. This is done underline the importance of several issues the United Nations wants humankind to reflect upon and act accordingly. Virtually all these issues had their roots in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which the United Nations approved on December the 10th, 1948. One important issue the United Nations celebrates every year is the establishment of the United Nations itself. That anniversary is, of course, today. The UN was established in 1945 after the disaster of World War II to bind possibly all nations to find viable alternative to war. At that time, the number of member states was 50. As of 2024, it is 193. At the core of the United Nations, two documents lie: the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights and the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, commonly referred to as the two covenants. While they had been drafted as a single document in 1954, the tensions caused by the Cold War got them to be separated into two texts, approved independently in 1966 and 1976. In this series of webinars on the Tai Ji Men case brought to us by the Center for Studies on New Religions and Human Rights Without Frontier, which I salute and thank, different panelists had occasion to focus and discuss suggestions prompted by the UN through its days of observance, including the two covenants. Today, we return to this important topic. In a previous webinar, I concentrated on the need to return to a unified text merging the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights and the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights as it was originally devised. This need is advocated by many scholars and rests, first, on the fact that the Cold War is now over and its problems as well. Secondly, it rests on the fact that the human being is a unity, and his or her rights and duties should always come together, not diluted in time. Said differently, civil, political, and economic rights can be separated from social and cultural rights only at great risk and even danger. The separation of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights and the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights into two texts was basically a concession to the Soviet Union or a capitulation to a rogue and bloody totalitarian power, which of course has no reason to remain untouched today. Moreover, the parcelization of human rights that such a basic capitulation to brutality implied is completely unacceptable for an organization whose rationale is the defense of human dignity. From this point of view, the permanence of separated two covenants can be listed as one of the failures of the United Nations. Also, the line of demarcation between the two covenants is worth considering. The division of the original text into two separate charters not only separated civil and political rights from economic, social, and cultural rights, it also severed social rights from civil and political rights and bound cultural rights not with civil, social, and political rights, but with economic rights. While it is natural to connect the culture of a group of people with that group's attempt to build a viable society administered by just politics, the two covenants imply that cultural questions are a function of economy. Again, this is a huge concession to the materialistic cast of mind of Marxism-Leninism, which played a gigantic role in the redrafting of what is now the two covenant system. Another peculiarity marks that double chart. Freedom of religion and belief is considered among the civil and political rights of the human being, not among cultural rights. A final equation can then be drawn. The economy, which gives the correct cultural answers to the material needs of human beings does not include spiritual ones. This was a terrible failure of the UN, which I think should be redressed as soon as possible. All this bears directly on what we call the Tai Ji Men case, a monstrous example of an injustice perpetrated legally or seemingly legally by a democratic nation that remains, no matter what, a strong and strategic ally of people of goodwill against rogue states. The Tai Ji Men case concerns a peaceful, law-abiding, patriotic group of citizens of the Republic of China in Taiwan still paying a high price, both spiritually and materially, for having done nothing wrong and after having been cleared of all fabricated accusations that had been moved against them in more than a quarter of a century. The Republic of China in Taiwan is not a member of the United Nations. On purpose, the webinars of this series are held on UN days of observance, even if Taiwan is not a member state. It is in fact a profound conviction of the organizers, panelists, and testimonials that the provision of the UN should morally regard also the Republic of China in Taiwan. The Republic of China in Taiwan itself agrees to this, as it decided unilaterally to incorporate the two covenants into its domestic legislation in 2009. Of course, no one of the organizers of this series of webinars, as well as for all participants, be they panelists or testimonials, want to dictate the lines of international diplomacy, telling the UN what it should or should not do as to its member states. At the same time, none of us can imagine that the UN wants simply to ignore the fate of innocent people in the Republic of China in Taiwan, using the non-membership of the Republic of China in Taiwan in the UN as a justification. What I'm saying here is that the UN cannot continue to turn its head away from what is happening in the Republic of China in Taiwan, adding failure to failure. It is time for the Tai Ji Men case to be considered internationally at top level as an example of blatant injustice. Again, this should not be constructed as a call for altering the delicate balance of the UN membership. Each of us may have legitimate second thoughts on that, but ours today is a totally different topic and should not be constructed as an interference in state politics. Tai Ji Men is non-partisan and non-political. Ours is simply the scandalized denunciation of a terribly unjust conduct that the UN cannot afford to tolerate. The record of human rights, chiefly freedom of religion or belief of some member states of the UN, is quite dubious and even openly miserable. While the United Nations should address the topic, it should also put some serious questions to non-member states that legitimately boast themselves as bastions of democracy. Thank you for your attention. Yes, we believe we have a final video that, as usual, would be a good conclusion for our webinar. So I will ask the technicians to show the final video.